Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We're at another episode of Led by Life today. We're your hosts, I'm Rafaela, and this is Hannah. And welcome back. If you've been here before, then you know that we talk about human design, the gates, the gene keys. We kind of just have a free-flowing, evolving conversation around the gene key and kind of how that correlates to our life experiences, either future, past, or present. And this week we are on Gene Key 31. And Hannah was just letting me know that you have this defined twice for you.
Yeah, I have it in my, hold on a sec, South Node, 31.4. And then I also have it in my Jupiter, 31.6, which is my Pearl. So
Your what?
Pearl in the,
Oh, your pearl.
yeah, sorry, accent.
Yes, I was like, in her pill. I'm not sure what
Pearl.
Isn't that funny? That's so funny. Yes.
Is that the Pearl? It's called the Pearl sequence, isn't it? But it's my like prosperity in
Mm.
the gene keys, and I'm yet to meet that prosperity. But I suppose that's a part of this whole process, right? Because it's about maturity. This I know this gate itself is not about like necessarily immaturity, but like the arrogance of the shadow frequency in a way
Mhm.
is kind of immature, as with so many of these energies. So it's just interesting.
Do you, because you find the immaturity in your life or like in yourself or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that like a part of and it's also in the sixth line for me, like my pearl being in the sixth line. I think that is really something that I will kind of get to like step into this perhaps leadership, influential, uh, humble humility kind of energy, perhaps a bit later on in my journey. And, I have been doing I've done the activation sequence and I've been doing the Venus sequence.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like this journey that he recommends you take over really a long period of time. It's not something to be rushed. It's not something to kind of, and he mentions that like people often want to rush to know where their prosperity is in their chart, but it's really about being patient with the journey. And then and also your prosperity isn't so much about you getting something, it's about what you give and what you contribute,
Mm.
um, and the way that you're compensated for that, I suppose.
So, it's interesting to me that like we oftentimes want to like you said, go to, oh, okay, so where my chart's gonna make me the money, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that it's just one of those things that like it's just like a kind of either programmed or immediate or what's gonna be like that instant kind of gratification. Um, So you have it activated twice. This is a gate that is in the throat center. Um, when I was reading it, I felt like I had some resonance with it, but I think it's simply because of the fact that I also have, like you, a defined throat. I don't have this one defined for myself, but how do you see like maybe some aspects of the shadow of arrogance show up in your life?
Mm. Well, I would just say, first of all, that, being a manifester, so for both of us being manifestors, we are very influential
Mhm.
and our voice can be very impactful. And so I would say that is also why a lot of these energies would resonate with us, whether or not we have them defined, because it is in that throat center, that powerful manifesting center. Impactful voice. But the shadow of arrogance, I think it's just that. I think that it's this feeling that I've had for a long time that I want to make an impact, that I want to help people and influence people. And I also have a fifth line, so being a manifester with a 2-5 profile, wanting to help people, and having this like 31st energy of influence.
Yeah.
I've seen this show up particularly in the work that I do. And, it's kind of funny. He even talks about this idea of the World Wide Web
Mm-hmm.
word.
Mm-hmm.
We see it online with so many people sharing their voices and so many opinions, and there's so much noise out there. And he talks a lot about language, like so much of this is about language, and it is in the throat center, it's the voice. But yeah, like so much is coming to me right now. But I suppose the way I've seen arrogance show up for me is like wanting to be heard before my time, wanting to be like recognized, wanting to feel like I'm making an impact in people's lives, but like wanting to rush that process. So it's this real kind of like immature, to me, the arrogance feels like immaturity, like thinking that I know better than like fine timing almost for how my impact will play out. And it also does come from a genuine place. It comes from a good place of wanting to help and to influence people in a positive way. But it shows up with arrogance when it's like, well, what can I get out of this? Making it about myself, rather than like what I said before about being about service, being about the collective and helping other people. And it's interesting because a big part of my job or my work is as a content creator, and a lot of people would also often consider that an influencer. I don't really like that word.
Yeah.
But it's technically what I do is like I have a social media profile where I share content, and I share my ideas and my thoughts and my voice, and I also share my creativity and self-expression. And I have the channel 1-8, the channel of inspiration, is what makes me a manifester. So yeah, I suppose there's just all of these like energies at play. But it's just funny that it's called the gate of influence. And a lot of my work is about being an influencer, even though I don't really resonate so much with that
Yeah.
title.
Yeah. It's quite fitting just knowing like what you do and like what you're working on, and kind of the way in which a lot of your creativity is released. A lot of it is around language, and kind of using the spoken word on such a bigger scale. And so it's kind of like cool and interesting to see how that like collective gate itself, right? Like I don't feel like I have, prior to now, like a real understanding of how sometimes a collective gate can show itself in the world, but I'm experiencing it through you, of this 31st being in the collective. And then just knowing, if you haven't checked out Hannah's like Instagram and her YouTube and all of that, the tags here in our show notes and stuff, do so, because it really is just so beautiful the way that you like express these things. And it often does bring so much like inspiration to me seeing it. I feel like, oh, I've always told you, like, it's so pretty and it's so pleasing and soothing and calming, and a really unique way of like storytelling almost, which I know is another gate actually in the throat center, which I think I have that one defined.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
It's a
and
different flavor of storytelling.
yeah. And I've heard that all of the gates in the throat center sort of have like their own voice. What would you say is the voice of the 31st? How do you hear it?
Well, yeah, it really is like this influential energy. But what I found very interesting was that he talks about it's not the programming partner, because the programming partner was the 62nd, But he does mention the 7th gene key.
Yes.
And I thought to myself as I was reading it, I wonder if the 7th is what makes up the channel. And it is. It makes up the channel of the alpha. And I don't have the 7th defined, but I do have a defined G center, right? So the 7th is connecting it is in the G center, and it connects up to the throat. And he talks about these being people with this energy being the real leaders, right? Whereas the 31st is almost in a way able to, like, it's kind of like the marketer or the spin doctor, he refers to it as. Like, it's able to take the message of the 7th and, like, put it out there to the collective and have it resonate with more people, you know, on a broader scale. And that's kind of how I feel it. And I also feel this energy, a similar sort of energy with the 8th gate, right? Because it's almost like taking what's in the heart, it's taking like what's in the G center and like expressing it out in the world. And so you know, the 8th is all about marketing as well. The 8th gene key, which also connects from the G center to the throat. So I don't know, I just feel like it's almost just like taking the heart of what, you know, what people need, and then it's like the megaphone that expresses it out there into the world. But it is a projected energy, right? And so is the 1-8. You know, these are both projected channels. So it's just really interesting because I've heard it said that, like, the people who, you know, are attracted to you or what you have to say will recognize you as a leader, and they will, like, invite that out of you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
No,
answered your part.
I mean, it did. It's sort of this voice of like messaging, but intentional and heartfelt. And
Yeah, and that direction as well. Sorry to cut you off there.
no, it's okay. Say that part again.
It's about direction as well, because that's what the, like, 7th gate is really about. It's like guidance and direction, and what I felt from a lot of what he was saying as well, it's about, like, the future as well, like what we're stepping into, what we need in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like somebody in my life that I, looked up and I realized they have the 31st defined. I don't know if they had the whole channel, but either way, I know that they have this one defined. And she is a very influential type of person. And the roles that she leads are usually being the project manager, or like she's like the one who kind of oversees the team of the project that they're working on. And she's the title itself, again, like the words are irrelevant, but the behavior and the experience is pretty much all the same, right? She has this ability to sort of captivate groups of people and steer them in a direction. And people have called that out of her. And I think it's kind of why she's gotten into certain roles in her career and has gotten to where she has. And now I'm sort of witnessing her sort of step out on her own to be a little bit more independent, but I'm going sidetracked. I can just see it in her. When she has something to say, it's said, and it's very directional and intentional, and really focused on bigger scales than just like the immediate moment. Yeah, I think of like almost like a visionary is what I think of. And actually her profile might have something to do with being visionary now that I think about it. But so that's sort of like the shadow of arrogance, and then like the gift. So the gift is leadership and the Siddhi is humility. I don't really remember how I resonated too much with it for myself. now that I'm like sitting here talking to you. Yeah, I hadn't even realized that you had it defined twice, and um
Well, one thing you said was really interesting was like being intentional. Like your friend is very intentional with her
mhm,
words. That was something that just kind of came to me as well. So the fourth line is about intent. So this is in my my south node, but it really is like the intention behind the words. And he talks about this as well. Like it's not even really about what words you use, it's like the frequency behind it. And that was so much that came up for me while I was reading this, was like this feeling of like what's being said is coming from the heart, when it's at that higher frequency, like when you get to the gift level of leadership, it's like it's no longer coming from this arrogant energy of like, what's in it for me? What can I get? Like this very individual kind of agenda.
mhm,
It still has an agenda, but the agenda is like to benefit the collective. And so it's almost like it's coming from, you know, what comes to me is just like when you speak, let it come from the heart, like let it be really intentional, let it, and it's the frequency of that voice that will carry the message, not the actual words
yeah,
themselves.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that. I've always, you know, the cliche that it's not like what you say, but how you say it. Um, and it will be interesting as we continue to go through the different gates that are in the throat center to have like a familiarity and an understanding of what that voice looks like for ourselves, just individually. Because, like I said, I mean, right now it's not really coming to me as to like how I resonated with it specifically. Um, but again, like we mentioned, having the throat center defined, I certainly think that, like you meant, there's a flavor that I have of my own expression of this. So, yeah, right. He calls it like heart branding. I just looked down
How,
and it says it.
how does it resonate for you? Like these different frequencies?
Well, I'm like, I really don't, I really don't know. Like in reading it, I had an idea, but now that like we're sitting with it and talking about it, um, I'm kind of like just also like flipping through, kind of seeing like what I highlighted. Um, and I'm not really too sure. I have this one part, it says, all words, opinions, and thoughts with which you identify are agents of a great illusion of your separate existence. I'm not really sure why I underlined that, but in the moment, it was like, okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
You know, human arrogance is rooted in the belief that we have any independent control over reality at all. Um, I think for some people, that's a really big thing to grasp. Uh,
Yeah.
to have this sort of notion that we really have no control over the experience, this human
Mm.
experience. I don't know. It's something I don't think many of us can like wrap our heads around. Um, but nothing like specifically is like calling out to me
Mm.
as I think about it.
Yeah, I found this one. I think we both shared this over message. Like the first time reading it, I really didn't know what to kind of.
You just reminded me of something.
Yeah, go for
I think
it.
that's why I have so many different things underlined right now, is because you just reminded me that the first time I read it, I was like, I'm falling asleep. I have no idea what I'm reading here. I really could not recollect what I was reading. And that's the preface that you and I have like an understanding of, that the Gene Keys, it's such a spiritual book and the content in it can be very, very deep, that you aren't meant to understand it as you're reading it, right? Like it's not a logical process. Like the concepts aren't something like, oh yeah, I get that now. You take it in, and that's why it's like a contemplation, and you let it sit and simmer and brew, and maybe some of it will come through with insight and clarity, and some of it is just in the ethers for you to have experienced. But I had done a Joe Dispenza change your beliefs meditation. So like he starts out with like 12 minutes of that breathing technique where you're pulling from the root all the way up through the pineal gland, and then does like a 40-minute guided meditation of being with the space and really clearing your identity, and then re-entering like a new belief. And I had done that, and then I reread the whole thing. And I remember thinking when I was reading it, wow, like I'm really in these words, like I'm really understanding. It was like my mind had cleared, like it was such in a clear space that the way I took it in the second time reading it was so different than the first time. Now I'm like, now I'm reminded of that. And I kind of want to like, I don't typically meditate or do anything like that before reading any one of these. So I'm kind of curious, and I don't know if you've ever done this, is how will it land when you sort of prep yourself in that way before reading?
Like to be open to receive the transmission in a
Yes.
complete, like non-attached kind of yeah, because we're almost coming at it with our own beliefs. We're reading a chapter and we're taking it in, and I felt that the first time I read it, because I almost felt that like shadow of arrogance being like, well, no, I'm not like that. Like, but I think that's why the second time reading it, it landed so much more, because I was a lot less attached to like my own personal illusion of
Mhm.
like, oh no, of course I don't. Of course I don't do this or present in this way, but we all do. Like that's
Right.
what's so almost confronting about the gene keys, is that we
Mhm.
all express all of these frequencies in different ways. And you really need a lot of humility to work with the gene keys, because you really need to let go of your own ego and your own personal ideas of who you are, and almost let it, and he talks about this so much, like let it kind of have its way with you, and show you like
Mhm.
how you express all the different frequencies, from the lowest of the lows to the highest of the highs. And um you know like I said at the very beginning, like that patience with the process to see how it unfolds, instead of like getting caught up in your mind about these concepts and these words, because they really are just words, but like letting the frequencies unfold.
Mhm. It's
Yeah.
just so funny because like here we are reading a whole bunch of words, interpreting all the words, then spewing out some more words and some more
Yeah.
words, and all this language to try
Yeah.
to conceptualize or just relate and share all this information um, is almost to some degree like kind of again how he rounds everything out, like within the gift, within the shadow and the gift and the Siddhi, it's like it kind of eats within itself. And like
Mm.
this, I imagine like this wormhole that is just kind of never ending. And it's just funny to sit here and think like here we are just trying to like
Make
use our
sense of it. Yeah.
expression, right? And I guess back to like what you were saying of with the accessibility of social media and different platforms, so many people maybe just saying whatever, everything and anything, and that not necessarily being supportive or collect like to the collective. I don't know.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I
Sorry.
was just gonna say, like, for myself, so I've decided to take a huge break. It was like a gift to myself, to not be on social media for this whole, like, from this year of my life, like from my birthday to my birthday again. And, every now and then I like sneak a scroll from somebody else's phone or whatever. But I did that really with the intention to get really honed in on, like, on me, and um what matters to me, and what do I want to do or what I don't want to do. And I think for myself, a lot of, like, my social media was in wellness spaces, in spiritual spaces, in mental health spaces, in fitness spaces, in dieting. And, like, it just got to a point where I was thinking, like, well, I can't hear myself anymore. All I hear is, like, that voice and that voice and that voice. And I've noticed that, like, recently, if I come across a decision that I want to make for myself, it's like I'm still having the thought, like, oh, but should I really eat that? Or should I really do that thing? Or maybe I don't want to do that thing. And it's sort of like a voice that's not my own. Like, it's just still conditioning and information that I've consumed. I have a lot of open centers in my chart. So I've recognized that taking in all of that stimulation, all of that language and those concepts and the words and the information that's out there really throws me off my center to know, like, what's real for me. And so, yeah, I'm still kind of on that journey and on that process, and it feels good.
Yeah. I think there's so much in what you just said. Like, if you'll be patient with me while I let it kind of
Let it land.
let it land. But like the first thing, also you are a second line, and I'm me too. Like, so Rafa is a 2/4, I'm a 2/5. And so much of our process and being manifestors is about like having that alone time, having that time to ourselves to like really go inward. And it's a very kind of introverted inward kind of energy. And not to say that you're necessarily an introvert, but you know what I mean? Like, we both need that time alone to really like hear our own thoughts, to see our own gifts, and to like, and a part of that being your voice, right? To know, to like connect with that inner guidance of intuition. And I think that it's going to be more important than ever for people to be able to tap into that inner guidance as we like move into the new paradigm. And there are so many voices right now, and there's so much noise, and there's so much like almost clutter out there in the ether. It's more important than ever to like know who you are and know what to listen to and know what's important to you. And I think that that's why like having human design come in at the time that it did, where it's all about your individual authority and like differentiating yourself from everyone else. Like, we have to be able to tap into that, and like knowing that if social media is causing a lot of like mental clutter and noise and getting in the way of you being able to like hear that inner guidance, then like absolutely we have to create boundaries and know when to like shut it off. But social media also has a lot of benefits as well. And so it's like, how do we use these tools without letting them consume us and letting them like take over our lives and like, yeah, get in the way of our authority, like questioning yourself. And you know what came to me yesterday, and I wrote it in my journal last night, because, being someone who is out there on social media, and I recognize that like it's a really powerful tool for me to get myself out there and to express myself. And I've also, having done so much like self-reflection and also working for so long now with human design and the gene keys, I can see how social media actually is a tool for me to share my gifts, like through my channel of inspiration, for example, and to share that in a creative way with the world. But I've also recognized that it's not for me to be like taking in and consuming what everyone else is saying. There's certain things, and I've actually been informing the universe, or like informing social media when I get on there. I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to go on for like 10 minutes, but you show me the things that I want to see,
Yeah.
or so I'm like kind of informing the universe how I want to be interacting with these platforms. And anyway, yesterday I guess I guess you could say it was an urge, but like I kind of just had this urge to say something and I put it out there. And then I noticed myself like wanting to go on and check and wanting to see like how it's being received. And first of all, that's not helpful for me as a manifester, like to be looking at the outcome or to be looking at what people have to say. But the thing that came to me that I wrote down was like, I do not need to validate my urges or to have my urges
Validated.
validated,
Yeah.
right? Because that is the most efficient way for me to be using and expressing my voice, is like when the urge is there to say something or create something or share something, to just trust it and to just do it. But if I'm like looking to what people say to feel recognized or to feel validated, then I'm actually like second guessing myself. And then I'm getting caught up in like questioning my urges and questioning my voice. Like,
Hmm.
it's just not up to me to see how it's being received. I just have to trust
Yeah.
that, like, I have an urge to say something and I do it, like, I just have to trust that it's going to reach the right people that it needs to.
Hmm.
And that's just something I wanted to share because, yeah, that's something I'm sitting with, like, how can I, be more intentional with what I'm saying, but then also, like, trust in my voice more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this kind of phrase that I've been reciting because it keeps coming up in multiple areas of my life lately, is that I'm not responsible for the outcome, I'm responsible for the process. And it, it it's like that theme of, yeah, surrendering the outcome. Like that's not up to us to know. And I think that that is kind of like the notion behind the gift of leadership and heart branding, as he calls it, because when we're in that frequency, what we're doing doesn't have an egoic motive,
Mm.
right? It's coming from a different place. And that's why it doesn't even really matter what you say.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's the other way, you're fixated on what you say because you want to control the outcome of what's going to happen here. And when I think of like how this relates in like collectively, I just think about like political campaigns and all of the influencer
Yeah.
on social medias and different things like that, and just businesses in general. I think about, um, he refers to um, more in the gift aspect of leadership, of art, science, literature, the just the voice really being something, an expression of transmission rather than like the product, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's just a tidbit to walk away with for myself, but also anybody who has this defined or even undefined.
Mm.
Hmm.
And I think that actually relates to every single energy. It's like, what is the energy behind it, or every action that we take, or
Hmm.
every word that we express, or every business that we start, or whatever it is. Like, product we try and sell, like, what is your intention behind it, you know? And if there's like a personal agenda rooted in fear, like, I need to get more, or I need this in order to be secure, or like there's not enough to go around, whatever it is, like, it's like that arrow uh, metaphor that we talked about a while ago. Like, when you shoot an arrow, like, if the
Mhm.
intention is aligned, it's not going to hit the target, you know, it's going to go sideways. Um, yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that's something for us all to like kind of sit with, you know, what is the intention behind what I'm about to share, as it specifically relates to the voice, or, you know, a way that we're expressing our language, but also like, what is the
Yeah.
intention with anything that I'm doing?
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I I just I did a little art thing this weekend, like myself. I was
Yeah.
um painting and with markers. But nevertheless, like as I started going, I realized like, wow, this thing really gives me sort of Dr. Seuss vibes, like the colors and the patterns that I had put together. And I don't know why that just like came up for me to share. Um, Maybe because again, it wasn't about I had finally released like the outcome of
Mm,
what this coloring that I was going to do was going to look like. Because lately I'd sit down to color or draw or whatever, and I don't like it. Um, but this time there really sort of was this intention of being with a process, and I did the thing, and I can't wait to do more of it like it. So it's pretty cool. And yeah, just thought I'd share that with you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, that kind of wraps up the 31st for us. And like always, if you guys haven't resonated with it, have anything you want to share with Hannah and I, please do so on our Instagram, or with Hannah on there. She's really active, putting out some really beautiful
Oh,
things.
not really active.
Well, to me, it seems like you are, I guess maybe I think about like what you're working on. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was really nice. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.